Okay, hi everyone. I'm just going to share my screen. Mine's like the exact opposite of Luke's. Mine feels incredibly frivolous, but yeah, nonetheless, here we go. All right. Okay, hopefully you can see that. All right. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of give a bit of an overview of a few things I'm working on at the moment. So this is the inside of my brain. It's much less tidy than this. So this is just kind of to give you a little visual idea, I suppose, of the things I'm working on at the moment. So today I'm mainly going to talk about the top ones. So I have a monograph that I'm working on Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, which I'll talk about in a bit. And then I have 4 co-edited books I'm involved with and a co-edited journal issue and then some other stuff at the bottom there. For some reason, it's just worked out that all of these things are kind of happening concurrently, even though I started them all at different times. So I'm just trying to not panic too much about the fact that most of these are massive projects that are kind of due this year or early next year. So trying to maintain a calm demeanor in the face of all of this. But I'm incredibly grateful that it's all working out, because these are all projects that I really love and that are kind of dear to my heart in many different ways. So the first one of these is my first monograph, which is on the adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. How this came about, it was honestly just a call for paper on the comms list, which I was like, sure, I can put in a short book proposal, no problem. At the end of 2019, not kind of realizing what the world had in store for us. So this is part of the Queer Film Classics series, which has been revived. It was formerly published by Arsenal Press and it wound up in 2018. So it's kind of similar to the BFI Film Classics, if you're familiar with that series at all, just slim volumes dedicated to specific films that are classed as classics. So the Queer Film Classic series, it's being revived and will start being published again, I believe, from the end of this year, if not early next year. So contributors were just asked to propose a title that appealed to them, that they thought was missing from the initial series of Queer Film Classics. I have an interest in Australian cinema. I've done a lot of research on it in the past, so I proposed Priscilla and they were happy to accept it, which is really great. So I'm kind of lucky, I suppose, in the sense that it's a slim volume. So I'm kind of hanging on to that thought. So slim volume, between 20 and 40,000 words. When I get on a roll, I can tend to write. So I'm just trying to hang on to all of those things. The draft is due at the end of the year. So I'm like, it'll be fine. It'll be easy. So yeah, the drafting process is underway for this one here. So this is going to be published with McGill Queen's University in Canada. So just going to give you a little overview of where I see this going at this point in time. So because it's part of an existing series, I guess I'm kind of lucky in the sense that there's a pretty clear structure that they want for this. So it's a 3-chapter book, being a slim volume. And each book gives like an overview of the film and the maker's career, an account of the film's reception, and then a personal essay. So for the personal essay, I'm kind of framing the book in terms of the film's upcoming 30-year anniversary. So the 30-year anniversary of Priscilla will be in 2024. So I think the book will come out, I'm suspecting it'll probably be 2023, just given things are pretty slow at the moment. So kind of just looking back at the long tail of Priscilla, how it's aged, particularly in terms of things like gender identity and representation on screen. And then the personal essay itself is going to focus on kind of 3 key themes at this stage. It might get cut back depending on the word limit. So I want to look at, firstly, the iconic imagery of Priscilla as kind of being like symbolic of acceptance of the LGBTQI community in Australia. But I want to kind of argue that this is really a grudging acceptance as such, and sort of think through some of the events of roughly the last decade. So thinking about the Marriage Law Postal Survey, the Religious Discrimination Act, and the kind of culture wars, I suppose, around things like, you know, the emboldened religious right and commentary about gender identity and gender diverse people that's kind of playing out in the media and such at present. The second part of this, I want to look at the spaces of Priscilla, so the physical and mental spaces, I suppose, of Priscilla. So things, thinking through the kind of history of the road movie, city versus country, and then this idea of the city as a safe space, which they talk about in the film. And then I kind of want to look at the impact of the Sydney lockout laws that's taken place over the last kind of 5 to 10 years-ish. And thinking about how that's kind of impacted queer venues and people kind of getting pushed out of spaces and places that were traditionally for them. And then finally, the stuff on the screen, I want to think about Priscilla now and kind of the impact, I suppose, on Australian queer culture. So you can see a lot of different stuff on the screen here. So particularly wanting to kind of think about the explosion of interest in drag, obviously RuPaul's Drag Race, most people I'm sure know about that. There's an Australian edition, which is starting on the weekend, the 1st. Very exciting. I know quite a few of these characters, which is great. So that's happening, but that's had a huge impact on the obviously exploding drag culture. Even in Wollongong, there's a huge drag culture in Wollongong. Who knew? And then things like Mardi Gras and World Pride, the continuing kind of influence of those events, things like the Broken Heel Festival held out in Broken Hill at that iconic hotel that was featured in Priscilla itself. And then things like, you know, adaptations as well. So things like Priscilla the musical over here. And then, you know, weird kind of events like this reality TV show. I'm not sure if anyone remembers from 2012, I Will Survive, where various kind of B and C grade, perhaps that's being generous, entertainers from Australia compete against each other to be involved in Priscilla the musical. So yeah, a lot to kind of unpack there, I suppose. So I'm particularly looking forward to visiting the National Film and Sound Archive sort of later in the year, probably around September, hopefully. So if anyone's got tips on how to approach that, I'd be really keen to hear about your experiences, particularly in terms of images and permissions. So images are going to be a big part of this little volume. So that's that one. I'm just going to kind of talk a little bit about a couple of the edited collections that I am working on. So the first one is this book, Fame and Fandom, Functioning On and Offline. So this is an edited collection I'm working on with colleagues that I know basically from Australia, but it is going to be published with the University of Iowa Press. Finally got our book reviews back on Monday, actually, which were really positive. So yay, that hardly ever happens to me. My peer reviews are usually either love it or set it on fire without anything in between. So really pleased that this is going ahead. So this came about as a result of 2 conferences from 2019. So the Fan Studies Network Australasia, which I'm involved with, and then the Fame and Persona Research Consortium conferences. So kind of the best papers from those conferences and then a few extras. So really happy that Chris Moore is in the book, and then a couple of other people from Wollongong as well. So what's it about? The aim of the volume is largely to kind of bring new perspectives to fan studies through an examination of interaction between celebrity and fan studies. So increasingly the field's kind of overlapping. And so what we really wanted to do was think about this, particularly in an Australian context, as the 2 fields are kind of underdeveloped here at this stage, but there's a really growing interest and growing cohort of scholars in this field. So overall, the kind of objective of the volume is to open fan studies to new avenues of exploration by suggesting novel theoretical approaches in part of the volume, outlining ethnographic approaches, which are typical to fan studies, and kind of thinking about how these can be combined with things like cultural analyses, methods, and theoretical frameworks of celebrity and persona studies. So kind of seeing, where those two fields are overlapping already, and then, how we can kind of push things forward and think about these things going forward. So it's really attempting to kind of break some new ground, I suppose, in these two closely related fields. We're also intending it to be a bit of an intervention into debates about the need to decolonise fan studies. So this has been a really big issue, particularly in the last couple of years. There's been a lot of debate about this. So the importance of a post-colonial perspective, if you like, has been highlighted in fan studies scholarship through calls to really expand from the Anglo-American theoretical lens as the field kind of started out, and the kind of widespread tendency to characterise fans and fandom as white by default. So really, there's a couple of really great chapters that are going to be featured in here that really kind of dig into those issues and how we might go about kind of working on that really kind of complex stuff, if you like. Okay. So this one is, sorry. Well, I'm going to just put this up so I don't have to see myself while I'm talking. So the next big thing I'm working on is this, which is going to be a huge amount of work, but hugely fun at the same time. So I'm working on 3 co-edited volumes called Gender and Action Film for Emerald Publishing with my wonderful co-editor, Stephen Gerard from Leeds, Beckett. Steve and I have been friends / colleagues since 2014. He's still, to this day, is one of the best public speakers I've ever seen. So if we can ever get him to come over here and, be a guest scholar or something like that, I'm going to gun for that to happen because he is great. So we've worked together on a couple of projects that he has co-edited, and we both love Jason Statham, so thus the gifts. So one of those co-edited collections he did was on Jason Statham. The other one was on James Bond and gender. So last time we caught up talking about, doing a project together, we came up with this. Emerald were interested. And we got so many abstracts that we pushed Emerald to see if we could actually have more than one book, and they are letting us have 3, which we're really lucky about. So we got over 80 abstracts. We've narrowed it down. I think we've got 48 chapters from memory. I've got it written down somewhere here. Yeah, 48. So we're covering kind of a very wide range of topics here. These are due out next year to coincide with the 40th anniversary of Rambo First Blood, which is why I have Stallone there on the screen. So this is kind of the overview of what we're going to be looking at. It's 3 books. We're doing it thematically and also kind of chronologically. So the first book's kind of a setup, contextualization of kind of things that have been written about, but, from newer perspectives, if you like. So we're sort of starting late 70s, early 80s with the first book. Again, taking inspiration from First Blood, one of the kind of first really super successful action thrillers in the canon, if you like, leading to what you might like to call the action film canon, I suppose. So you can kind of see this through line to, more modern, franchises and, key films that are coming through today, things like John Wick, which, kind of leads me to my last topic. But anyway, so as I said, 48 contributors, thematic kind of arrangement here. Really, really great chapters. So I'm super looking forward to this as a project. I think even though it's going to be a lot of work, it will be really enjoyable as well. There's an array of international contributors from, postgrads right through to established academics. So we were really lucky with, the array of international contributors. We've got a really diverse kind of cast, if you like. Yeah, really looking forward to this anyway. So the volumes are going to kind of look, they're mainly kind of a series of detailed and in-depth case studies of film stars, productions, and their kind of relationship with audiences, and kind of thinking about why action films remain this important staple genre while simultaneously questioning ideas about gender and genre, but mainly gender. The series is gender and da da da. So gender and action films is the kind of overreaching point of all of those. So I really wanted to end on Keanu, just because, you know, who wouldn't want to think about Keanu first thing in the morning. How this one came about: pub chat with a friend / colleague in the UK after a conference. Remember going to the pub? Oh, I miss that. I know not everyone does, but that's okay, I do. So we, you know, both fans of Keanu, both celebrity studies scholars loosely. So we came up with an idea to pitch a special journal issue on Keanu in 2019, kind of the peak of this resurgence of interest in Keanu Reeves, often known as the Keanu Naissance or the Keanu-naissance, depending on how you like to spell it or present it. So shortly after we issued the call for papers online, a writer for Vox, Aja Romano, some of you might know them, contacted us. She was doing this great article about Keanu and his kind of resurgence, if you like. So yeah, the call for papers, we pretty much put it up. Aja got in contact with us. They wrote this article, and then we had 80 submissions for potentially featuring in the special issue. So 2019, for those who aren't Keanu fans, he really kind of experienced this, as I say, Keanu Naissance. It was sort of known as his resurgent period. All of these things that he was featured in were released at once. So John Wick 3, he did cameos in Toy Story 4, Always Be My Maybe. There's obviously huge interest in Keanu online, memification of Keanu. He can be seen everywhere. And he also is kind of the public face for a massive video game came out, Cyberpunk 2077. So Keanu, popularly known as the internet's boyfriend. So I'm just going to play this for you while I'm talking. Turn the sound off so you can still hear me. More important. So this became a huge internet meme amongst other things. This is his cameo in Always Be My Maybe. If you're on Twitter, you need to go and have a look at the account Keanu Walking to Music, which is pretty much what's happening here now. So for the journal issue, we had such a huge array of potential contributors. We managed to get it down to 10. So we tried to cover with these papers the wide array of different elements of Keanu's career and celebrity persona. So we've got stuff looking at Keanu and memes, celebrity pairings, Keanu as the internet's boyfriend, contemporary masculinity, John Wick, and action films, animation and Keanu, and his celebrity cameos. So there's a lot in there. The paper that I've written is looking at Keanu's star image through the lens of research on aging celebrities and aging fans. So thinking about Keanu kind of through the generations. So while the memification of his image is kind of essential to his resurgent star image with younger fans, memes have also played this role in centering Keanu as this aging yet ageless celebrity, if you like. So, you know, there's been this speculation that he's an alien. Hang on, I can show you that. Oh, it's on the next page. It's fine. I'll show you in a minute. There's a meme about that, obviously. He's also like notoriously private about his private life. And, you know, then there was all this interest in his first appearance with an age-appropriate girlfriend. So a lot to kind of unpack when we're thinking about aging in the public eye and gender, and just thinking about aging male stars. So there's a lot of research coming out in that area as well. So thinking about that. So finally thinking about how those different elements come together with his reprisal of his Ted Theodore Logan role in Bill and Ted Face the Music last year. So that film really kind of speaks to all of these themes. Think about, you know, agelessness, star image, nostalgia with his aging fans, and what all of this kind of says about him as a kind of atypical aging male celebrity, if you like. All right, so I'll just pause that. It's enough of Keanu walking to music. Yeah, so that's it. That's the meme I was telling you about, the agelessness of Keanu. So yeah, that's all. I'll leave the floor open to questions if anyone wants to ask anything.
Great. Thank you, Renee. Yeah, any questions or comments? That's, yeah. There's a, you know, you've certainly got a lot going on, Renee, but it all sounds fantastic.
I've just got a quick question. It's probably would be classified more under the what Chris's practical slides. It's about the edited books and so on, Renee, and the process of your role in that. I mean, looking at what you're doing just sounds nuts. There's so much work going on. It's frightening. Does that mean you are editing, like, as copy editor, as what, like, what exactly is your role? And you know, can you speak to that a bit more?
Oh, sorry. Sure. So the only reason I'm not kind of losing my mind about how much work all of this is because they're all at different stages, and kind of my involvement is different for all of them, thankfully. So the first one, the Fame and Fandom book, in that one, my role is somewhat limited, thankfully. And that one's kind of getting towards the end of the process. So with that one, because that was drawn from two conferences, essentially Celia and Jackie, who were the first two names on the book, really took the lead in putting together the book proposal. They'd worked with Iowa before, which was really great. So they kind of, you know, were driving the car, if you like. And with that one, these are the most organized people I've ever worked with. It's been a fantastic thing to be involved with, because they literally issued me a chart and said, here's what we'd like you to do. And I'm like, great. So for that one, I pretty much read through, I think I had like 4 or 5 chapters that I was responsible for. I read through those, made sure I didn't really do sort of copy editing as such on those. It was more, you know, is this theoretically sound? Does this all make sense? So more like, you know, when you'd edit a journal, you know, when you do a peer review, so to speak, for that one. And then the action film books is going to be more work, but thankfully that's also a shared task. So for that one, we put out the call for papers. Steve already had an existing relationship with Emerald, so we were kind of lucky in the sense that we didn't have to kind of think about who we were going to give it to. In terms of publishers, it was more, you know, I'm kind of piggybacking on some other people's relationships, which is really nice. So with him, you know, he already knew the editors, so we kind of just put it together and sent it to them, and then it went out for peer review. It was positive, but we'd already asked for chapters for that. So when we put in the actual book proposal, we had it all put together. So if they had have rejected it, we would have gone elsewhere. So for that one, my work is going to be more intense, but yeah, it's okay. Like, I kind of don't mind, because these are all things I really wanted to do. It's just like the timing might not be the best, but hey ho, I'm just going to go with it. I'll be okay. So if I look crazy in the hallway later this year, please maybe buy me a coffee, or I don't know, put a comfy rug around me or something and put me in a corner somewhere.